Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new episode of Nostalgia Bit. Your eyes do not deceive you. It is the Mountain, joined by Tyrion Lannister. Welcome to
That was good.
our Game of Thrones episode. Holy shit. We're in a very...
I'm so excited for this.
This is an episode probably about a year in the making, because believe it or not, me and Cooper, neither of us had prior to now, had never seen Game of Thrones.
Never in the know.
Never seen Game of Thrones, but also never had it spoiled, which I think is a fascinatingly unique thing.
I got more spoiled whilst I was watching the show than before.
I think it's when you know what's going on as well. Yeah. When you know like the associations of things, then it's like,
and the characters and stuff. Yeah,
you know that. Yeah, when you see a scene, then you know how significant that is, and I think that's.
Definitely.
That's the stinker. But holy shit, we did it. We've both finished it. I finished it first, not that it's a competition. But
wow.
In
Game of Thrones, you'd be criticized for finishing first. So
wow. I'm certainly no Podrick. Let's just say that. So anyway, we're gonna basically just talk about that. We're gonna talk about our opinions on it. We haven't really talked too much about it because we wanted to save it for the podcast. But we want to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about our favourites, our least favourite moments, and of course, our thoughts on the very controversial final season of Game of Thrones, which has been contested.
Do you remember when it came out? Do you remember? Because I had friends who were obsessed with it when the ending came out.
Yeah, 2018, 2019, right?
I remember the backlash that it got.
I remember.
Like I said, I had friends who had watched it. I had a really close friend who'd watched it for the first time in preparations for season 7 and 8 coming out, and it was horrific. He was saying when he was so disappointed with season 8. I
think it's difficult, isn't it? Because there is such a perceptive when you're watching it week in, week out, and you've been watching it for years, and you're disappointed. There's nothing quite as bad as that feeling. But when you're years later, completely detached from a fandom, just watching it, binging it. There's a different perspective, and I think that's an interesting one to talk about from our perspective. As both of us, neither of us have seen it before. Neither of us have seen it years ago when it came out. None of us were part of that hype. We have only started watching it in the last year, and I've only just finished it recently. Yeah. We'll not talk about House of the Dragon today, but we're both starting that as well. So we'll probably talk about that in the future if there's interest. But Game of Thrones.
I think definitely big spoiler.
Yeah.
That we're going to talk about spoilers.
We are going to talk all spoilers pretty much, because
if you haven't seen Game of Thrones, first of all, consider watching Game of Thrones. It's fucking incredible.
Yeah.
And don't watch this episode and then go, I'm going to watch it, because it's experiencing it without the spoilers is kind of the biggest things. There's obviously there will be plot points that everybody knows, the Red Wedding, Battle of the Bastards. They are.
But that's and that's part of it.
We've had this. We must have the conversation. To a person who plays D&D and writes fantasy stuff and indulges in other fantasy stuff, the Red Wedding is a commonly used phrase. It is it is a phrase saying, we've been red weddinged. Oh, you've red weddinged us. There are so many podcasts that I've listened to, D&D shows, all that kind of stuff, where the players have just gone, oh my god, we're getting red weddinged. It's such a commonly known term. But knowing that kind of stuff doesn't change anything in Game of Thrones. I knew about the Red Wedding and completely got red weddinged, like hook, line, and sinker. Battle of the Bastards, you know the term, but you don't know what it is until you get closer to the time. But again, it's that shouldn't put you off at all.
So that's basically your final warning. Go if you haven't seen it. Then we are going to spoil it, whether you want to watch it or you don't want to watch it or you don't care about spoilers, anything like that. We're going to talk about spoilers, so stick around or don't. It's up to you. A really interesting point to start with, because I knew, everyone's heard Red Wedding, everyone's heard Battle of the Bastards, and I think there's such a hot take already. I think
I know what this hot take.
I think the Red Wedding kind of was ruined for me, not because I had it spoiled or anything. I didn't, but because I knew it was such an important, significant thing, and I've had years of people telling me, "Oh, you got to watch it. The Red Wedding is crazy. It's a bigger." And you're like, I'm watching the show. I'm watching the show with my girlfriend who has seen it before, and I know, when we sit down, it's I know that it's coming. I know that end of season 3, we're going to sit down, and she's like, I think this is the Red Wedding episode. And I'm like, holy shit, let's lock in, fucking Red Wedding episode time. It's going to be great. Because in my head, and you look at the series development, when you know there's something called the Red Wedding coming up, and Joffrey's being a prick, and he's also planning his wedding, you think, it's going to be the Joffrey death episode. I can't fucking wait. I think something's going to go down. And then it's just the wedding of some random fucking guy. And then it...
Oh, okay, yeah. I was like... Yeah,
well, it's not Rob's wedding, is it?
Yeah.
It's not.
Carry on.
But it's like, and I think like when it happened, I was shocked and I didn't know what was going to happen and I didn't expect it. But at the time when I watched it, I did feel a bit like deflated and a little bit disappointed because I was like, well, I feel like I've had it hyped up so much, and that's one of the problems with watching it this late on is that everyone's had a chance to tell you how amazing it is without spoiling it for you. So what you think it is, like whatever actually happens, is never going to live up to what's in your mind and your imagination. I don't think.
So I was in a similar situation where so one of the biggest spoilers I had at Game of Thrones was Joffrey's death. Okay. I knew that it was coming, and I knew when it was.
Yeah. He was pushing his luck just from a story perspective. I was like,
it makes sense, like story wise, that he's going to die. But I knew the episode, I knew everything.
Oh, so really? Okay.
Approaching the end of this season, I knew the Red Wedding was this season. I knew Joffrey's death was this season. I was like, that's what it's going to be. Episode 10, the Red Wedding is going to be Joffrey's death. And I had it. Oh. I was so...
Because Joffrey's death is season 4.
Yes, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So, yeah. But I was... Because I knew season 4 was the Red Wedding.
No, season 3 is Red Wedding. Red Wedding was end of season 3. Joffrey's death was like early season 4.
It's not. Joffrey's death's the last episode of season 3.
Nah, it's not. I promise.
Are you sure I'm sure Red Wedding's
season 4. Season 4 starts with Joffrey's death, and then is the trial, and is the court case, and then is the trial by combat. That's the whole of season 4.
Really?
Yeah. The Red Wedding is what ends season 3, kind of. Yeah.
Hang on. I believe you. I'm just double checking.
Yeah.
Yeah, season 5, episode 2. So I knew it was coming. So I must have known it was season 3. Basically, I knew it was coming. I knew Joffrey's death, and I knew it was coming. So it must have been like, in my head, I was convinced that Joffrey's death was the Red Wedding. So when all this stuff happened with the actual Red Wedding, I had no idea what was going to go on. And therefore, it caught me so by surprise.
Yeah.
That's what I loved about the Red Wedding. Like, I truly got the Red... I think that you knowing that this episode was going to be the Red Wedding probably would have changed it slightly, but I had not a single clue what episode was going to be the Red Wedding at all. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You're probably right. I think that probably is it. I think knowing that it is and knowing that it was coming probably didn't help. And I think I also I didn't really care much for Rob or Catelyn as characters. If anything, that subplot of their rebellion against the crown was the weakest part of the show for me at that point. So I was not like, oh shit, no, that's really bad. I was more like, oh cool, that's one story that I don't have to think about anymore. But it was good, and the thing is, what I will specify is I've since went back and thoroughly enjoyed it and been like, oh my god, this is actually some incredible television that I just didn't appreciate at the time. And that's okay. That's fine. I think it's brilliant, and I think it's a brilliant bit of TV. My initial reaction was not what maybe anyone would have expected or wanted from a Game of Thrones fan perspective, I guess.
So in the books, which is interesting, which I've gone back and looked at, because obviously Winds were I think eventually we will touch on the Winds of Winter and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
But so I don't know if you know anything about the books and about stuff that's been missed out, stuff that was Do you know that Catelyn's story isn't supposed to end at the Red Wedding?
She becomes a sort of voiceless ghoul or something in the book.
Yeah, so in the books, the Red Wedding basically happens, and I guess this adds another level to the Red Wedding. Is basically the Red Wedding happens, she dies and then becomes a voiceless ghoul who goes by the name of Lady Stoneheart, and joins the Brotherhood Without Banners.
Yeah, the flame people.
And and then basically goes on to seek revenge of the people who wronged her and her family.
Which makes sense, but they kind of changed that in the show to be Arya's story, and I get that. Actually, to me, kind of worked. I think the bit where Arya kills Walder Frey at the end of season 6 goes fucking hard. I like that. That's such a great scene, and the thing with the pie. There's a lot of changes with, I think, the Freys and the Starks in terms of that from the books to the TV show, but I don't know what happened in the books, so I can only appreciate what we've seen, and I actually think it really works. I don't think Catelyn being alive but being some sort of ghoul would have worked. I think it's that whole thing of the book.
Show. I think
the book was a lot more
It's a lot
fantasy
like
focused.
I could not have seen Catelyn. Like, I couldn't imagine having another plot of Catelyn. And, like, don't get me wrong, there are some moments that happen between Lady Stoneheart and like Brienne later on that I would have loved to have seen like in actual live action. But at the same time, that just feels like it's another depth, if that makes sense. And again, it's another story that they would have had to finish in season 7 and 8, and God knows where that story would have ended. So,
it's one of those things that I don't mind, but the thing is, I don't know the books, and like I go off of what I know, which is very, very little, and I just have to go. Well, all I know is the show, and all I'm probably ever going to know is the show, because I'm knowing myself, I'm less likely to read the books, but I am fascinated by it. I think the Battle of the Bastards is the other big one.
Yeah. Battle of the Bastards
that didn't get spoiled for me, and I knew it was coming, and I knew what it would be, and I didn't care. I was so excited for it.
My favourite battle might be the Battle of the Bastards.
So I was going to say this. We want to talk about what is your favourite battle of Game of Thrones?
It is either the Battle of the Bastards or the Long Night. And the Long Night, the Long Night, right? To be honest, I love Jon Snow. I love his character so much. The White Walker stuff just never really hit with me.
No.
Like, it always felt like I loved the Night's Watch. I loved all that stuff, but there was something about the White Walker storyline which just never it was never like my favorite storyline. The Long Night I absolutely loved to pieces. But I loved it because of a story point and the action stuff. But the production behind it,
don't get me wrong,
goodness.
That's probably my favorite bit of it. The only thing I didn't like about the Long Night, honestly, is like, I don't know, it just felt, for me, the production was so incredible on that. But
the Long Night was 11 weeks of night shoots.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. It's such a long episode as well.
Mental.
But the problem I have with it, though, is it feels too detached from reality a little bit. Right? And I'll tell you what I mean. It's like, I have never felt plot armor like it when you watch that episode of Game of Thrones. How can Jaime and Brienne be standing on like a hill, swinging a sword, only barely holding off the army of the dead for them to come out completely unscathed? How did half of these characters survive? I know they take off a few characters, right? They killed Jorah. They killed what's the little girl's name? I can't remember the name of the character. Lady Mormont. Thank you. And they killed like a couple of other characters. They killed
Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. I can't remember his name.
Oh yeah, exactly.
The one from Middlesbrough.
And the one from Middlesbrough.
That's where he's from.
Yeah, no, I know. He doesn't live far from where we live.
Middlesbrough.
And oh my god, who else? And fucking Theon, right? But like, I think that I was sort of expecting more main characters to die 2 episodes before the finale. I was kind of a bit disappointed, not gonna lie.
Going into this episode, me and my girlfriend actually wrote down predictions of who we thought were going to die in the episode. I only got one right, and I only got the Lord Commander. It's the only person I got.
Really? I would have guessed Jorah. I would have guessed Jorah.
I thought. To be fair, I think my girlfriend guessed Jorah. She guessed Jorah Mormont. I guessed Jaime. I thought Jaime was going to kick the bucket.
I guessed Jaime, Brienne, the Hound.
I guessed Jaime. I guessed the Hound because I thought the Hound was going to die, become a White Walker, and Arya was going to kill him. I guessed Lord Commander, obviously, and then Giantsbane, the ginger wildling.
Oh yeah, I thought he might die, but no, fine.
Yeah.
I don't. My problem with that is it's that, and then also it's like they kind of pause halfway through the episode when like Arya's like sneaking around Winterfell. Like I know Winterfell's supposed to be big, but I did get a sort of feeling of like that. Surely that cannot be taking place at the same time. Like, how is it like they're collapsing through the gates in hordes of them, almost like waves of water crashing against the gates? To then Arya spends 10 minutes running around a library with about 5 of them. And I just think, like, well, what? How is everything else going on outside at the same time as this? Like,
and I think what's going on. I enjoyed the Long Night because for me it was always like, it always felt like a zombie apocalypse story with the White Walkers. And and again, this is probably more on the end of season 8. The White Walkers from their original concept to the ending of the show is it's night and day. Like they are not the same at all. And I fully understand for production reasons, all that kind of jazz that you see behind the scenes. There are reasons why it changes and they're more zombie like than the actual like ice like like, but it just felt the whole way through just felt off, but the long night for me was like I just enjoyed it because it was a bit like it was the battle. It was like a zombie apocalypse style battle. It kind of brought in that kind of like sci-fi, like sciencey aspect of it.
I think as well. Yeah, I think the thing with me again, it's the Night King. I just don't. I can't really give a shit about a villain who doesn't have literally a single line of dialogue in the whole show. Like I
could have sworn the Night King speaks, or one of the White Walkers speak at some point during the show. Or am I just completely making that up?
I don't know. I don't think that's ever happened. I think they've always been like silent, and that's like their whole thing. But I think that removes an element of humanity, and I know that's the point. They're supposed to be the army of the dead. But I like you cannot describe the difference in feeling when like the main bad guys of the show die, like the main evil pricks, like Joffrey, like Ramsay, like to an extent Cersei, although we'll talk about that. Euron, like those people, they're such assholes in the dialogue that you are rooting for them to be violently fucking killed, and then it happens and it's great. But with the Night King, I'm like, well, I don't really care. You're just a guy. Like, I get like the stakes of it, but I don't. I don't know. I just kind of feel like how much better would it have been like if he'd had some fucking monologue or something. He was very calculating.
That's the thing, though. It's like with all the battles in Game of Thrones, there's always the political side of it. So you get big monologues and speeches. The Battle of Bastards is like the greatest example of it.
Yeah. Exactly,
whereas with the Night King, because the Night King story is just all, like that whole story is all about breaking down the wall, invading the continent. There's no politics. There's no persuading him. It's all battle, battle, battle. And I think that's the part that you miss out on it.
But the stakes are lost.
You miss out.
And I also think as well there is something to the art of a good battle in a TV show or film where sometimes less is more. And I think The Long Night is brilliant, but it is an hour and a half of non-stop.
Oh, it's
carnage.
And
I'm like, it's just too much to watch in one go.
It's a production masterclass, like we said. But again, I think
100%. It's brilliantly made, and I think the episode itself is great.
There is a part of me that wonders if season 8 hadn't have gone the way that it did, and the actual vision of Game of Thrones was supposed to happen, if it would have been different. And obviously we would have got longer to set this stuff up. But again, I don't know how much longer I could have taken Jon Snow running around a continent saying that winter is coming. I love him. My favourite character. Yeah. But I don't know how much more I could have taken.
For me, that the anticipation was almost better than the result. And that's only because it's just so exhausting to watch. And I don't know. Well, I guess that's fine. I mean, final question of that. What did you think of like how the Night King went out? Because I know that that's quite a controversial point of the last season.
I'll keep it $150. I fucking hate Arya's storyline in Game of Thrones. Like dead ass. I hate it. To me, the moment she abandons the faceless god, her story makes no fucking sense at all.
Really? See, I was sort of waiting for her to jump that ship, because that was, to me, was the most boring part of the show, or one of, was Arya with the many-faced god. I'm so
honestly,
bored there.
The fucking her wanting to find out what's west of Westeros is the biggest fucking cop-out of a finale for a main character. I'm not being funny. It's such a fucking arse pull. Like, how the fuck is Arya the only fucking person in the show to go, oh, look at a map. What's west of Westeros? Like, and I fully understand. And I had this argument yesterday, like, having a conversation with someone. For me, it's a story point. It's not a finale. Because what's west of Westeros is, like, it's such an arse pull unless you find out a reason for it. Like, I can imagine fucking headcanon, oh, there's some political reason for it. There's some reason why all the maps stop west of Westeros.
I don't think it's about the map as much, that it is more about her character doesn't fit in with the...
But that's the no one. That's the no one story. That's the thing. It's like,
but it's not.
It's like Arya's story.
I don't know, though. I feel
it's like for me, it's always like Arya wants to disappear. She become like... Arya can become no one. And
I'm actually with you on that. Yeah, I feel like
to me, her jump between I want to be no one to I want to be Arya Stark is like, it's completely like, I understand she falls out. Yeah,
it's her decision to be like,
I fully understand that she has the problems, all that kind of stuff. But to me, it feels like just a complete, like, it's just a complete 180 that to me just comes out of nearly left field. Like, it doesn't feel like there's any stakes or any setup to it at all. Like, it is completely left field that she wants to leave and then gets chased down and almost killed. And then afterwards, afterwards, it feels like they're just they're scrambling plot points from other people's stories to try and wrap up her story. I love that she goes and kills what's his name, who does the Red Wedding, that kind of stuff. Amazing. Makes so much sense that she does that, right?
Yeah, that's great.
Lord of Frey. Makes so much sense. I fully understand she wants to go south and kill Cersei. Like, amazing. Great story point. I understand that she wants to go south with the Hound and kill Cersei. Did it like amazing, great story point. But these are all like her killing the Night King makes no fucking sense at all. And I fully understand if Jon Snow had killed the Night King, it's the biggest fucking plot armor ever. Like, you can say whatever the fuck you want to say, but it should have. Jon Snow should have killed the Night King because it makes no sense.
I don't know if it should have been Jon.
It makes no sense that Arya does it because the whole thing is, it's like, again, it's a 180. It's like, it's Arya wants to be no one. She wants to be Arya Stark, and then she becomes too famous by killing the Night King, so wants to be no one, and then decides, I wonder what's west of Westeros. What?
The West of Westeros thing, I understand as a sense of, like, in the same way that she doesn't want to become that guy's, like wife or missus. Like, she wants to be her own thing. I thought it was interesting, and this is me maybe being a bit fucking, Gen Z, possibly. But I think, like, I really like the perspective of looking at her story almost through the eyes of, like a gender dysphoria kind of thing. Where she's very, like, completely detached from, like, the social etiquette and norms of, like, male and female in this world. But then beyond that, of course, I think she's disconnected from any sort of archetype or sort of expectation placed on her.
Yeah.
Even when she's killed, like,
I
the
love
Night
Arya.
King.
Like, don't get me
even
wrong,
when she's killed the Night King,
Arya so much.
What's his name, Baratheon, is like, come and marry me, and you can be my, like, you want to be my wife, and it's like, Gendry, that's it, and she's like, well, no, and that's so in character for me, and I think her going, well, she doesn't feel like she belongs in this world where those things still exist and those people still exist, and the war is potentially going to happen again. Like, it's not, like, the whole point is that it's a new equilibrium, but we'll talk about that ending. But I think love, with I don't mind her going
Arya.
away. I think
like,
that's a nice
I love Arya. Like, and again, it's like I don't mind. I don't mind her going off to explore, but to me, like, the whole thing that she's the only person that's ever questioned what was west of Westeros. Like, if it had been set up, like if Sam had said something about it, or if the Citadel had referenced it, like,
I think she's just going to the unknown, isn't she? Because she knows she's going somewhere new, and that's what she wants. She wants to escape from the world.
It just feels like the west of Westeros thing should have been. It should be a bigger thing. Like, it should be a bigger thing that there is some reason why. Like, it's like in House of the Dragons, where it's like, the Song of Ice and Fire, that kind of thing. It's like only elite, like only certain people know what's west of Westeros, and it's like that kind of thing. It's like it should have been established earlier on that there's some sort of mystery surrounding what is west of Westeros. And like I said, I love Arya.
I don't think it's that deep, though. I don't think it's that deep. I think,
but then to me, but that's what I'm saying. I think for it to be for it to be where someone's story ends, like. Yeah. It just feels like it should have had more weight.
There's talks of an Arya Stark spin-off anyway, so it might not be where the story ends.
Yeah,
we'll
true.
I don't know. But moving on from that, because I feel like we could talk about this all day. I want to go straight to, like, what is your, like, favourite death in all of Game of Thrones?
Okay, so
because we talked about this before, we don't know each other's.
So mine's more from, like, a production standpoint. It's not the most glorious death. It's not the most My favourite death is Tommen's.
Not mine, but great. Like, I think that just shows our difference of what we appreciate in this thing. Go cook.
So I've had this conversation with so many people. Like, me and my girlfriend had this conversation. My girlfriend's favourite is Joffrey. She's like, I love it. Like, the art design, the makeup, it's perfect.
Oh, it's brilliant.
I love Tommen's because it's like, you've just come off of this massive fucking, like, this huge build-up, like, anticipation. And it's just so, like, you come off, like, jump cuts, like, moving around, massive explosions, like, shots all over the city, like, the set, all this different stuff, right? And it's just simple. The camera is in one place.
Yeah.
You see not even a man, you see a boy looking across at what has just happened. He knows exactly who is there. He knows exactly why they are there. He walks out of the frame, he takes crown off, which you don't see. He walks back to the window frame and just steps and takes his own life. And I absolutely, because it's so perfect, because it's not even perfect to a story point. It's not perfect for the character. It's perfect, and I love it because it has been so meticulously thought through, but it's so simple, and it matches, but it's also like a juxtaposition of all the shit that you've just watched for the first 15 minutes of the episode. Like, I love it so unbelievably much.
That's a great one.
And on top of that, it's a funny fucking GIF to use as well. It's amazing. It's an amazing GIF
going
to use.
From like the appreciation of the art to like it's a fun GIF.
It's a fun GIF to use if you're not feeling great.
It's a good moment. I want to like reserve some time to talk about the opening of season 6, episode 10, because it's my favorite in all of Game of Thrones. I think it's brilliant. That's such a great death, and you're so right, like the way it's shot and everything like that. Mine comes from a similar place where it's not so much about like the gruesomeness or like the satisfyingness, because actually my favorite death is of someone who I really didn't want to die.
Really?
But I thought their death scene, despite the fact that they die off camera, I think their final scene, their death scene, kind of, is one of my favorite scenes in the show, and an absolutely perfect, just masterclass in writing a character.
There's only one that I can think that's an off-screen death.
Go on.
Is it Stannis?
No, fuck. I have things to say about that. Trust me.
That's why I was confused, because I know you fucking hate it.
No. Olenna Tyrell.
That's fucking... Actually, that's based
So the final scene that we see her in,
agree.
She is... Her entire castle has been defeated, her soldiers are killed, the Lannisters have captured, and she knows that she's going to be killed. But like the rest of the fucking series, she is calm and collected and completely in control of her own fate. She talks to Jaime, who's going to put the poison in her glass. She's grateful for that. She downs it in one. And then does this little monologue. And you think, well, whatever this monologue is going to be, because it's going to be a final one, is going to be good. Little did I expect, like, that many seasons after, like, Joffrey's death for this to come out where she's, like... I thought she was just getting at him, getting at Jaime, going, "Oh, I'd hate to die like your son," like choking.
I forgot,
bubbling.
I completely forgot that she was the one who orchestrated it, and it was only until she got further into the dialogue where I was like, "Oh shit!" Like,
and it was just that when she started talking about like describing it, I thought, which is just being cruel, and that's such a boss bitch move. And then she looks at him, and I can't remember exactly what it is, what she says, but it's like, "Not at all what I intended," and I thought.
Yeah.
Oh. What a fucking scene! I mean, Christ, it's a masterclass in writing. And what a character, like, one of my favourite characters of the whole show. Didn't take any shit. Character. Genuinely love her. And rest in peace, Diana Rigg, who is one of, like, the actors of a generation and had so much on-screen presence. There are none like her. She was incredible. And her death in the show is absolutely my favourite. I think it's up there. It may not be the most gruesome, it may not be the most satisfying, but my god, does it fucking hit. And that was exactly the perfect death for a character like that.
The quote is, "I'd hate to die like your son, clawing at his neck, foam and bile spilling from his mouth, eyes blood red, skin purple. Must have been a horrible for you as a king's god, as a father. It was horrible enough for me. A shocking scene, not at all what I intended. You see, I'd never seen the poison work before." And then tells Cersei, "I want her to know it was me."
Yeah. I mean, amazing. That's so cool.
It's amazing.
And even though she's dead,
it's perfect for Olenna's character. It's perfect for Olenna's character as well, because she deserves to end one step ahead of Cersei, always, as she always has been.
And in that moment as well, it's not only that, but it's also confirming for Cersei that it actually wasn't Tyrion.
Tyrion, yeah.
So I think that's really cool. I think there's a lot of great deaths. So I think another favourite, of course, is Joffrey. I mean, that's a great death.
Oh, it's so good.
I think
it's so good.
We've described that in detail anyway.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else is good. I thought that
there's so
I think Ramsay's got a good death as well. I heard that there was it was apparently much more gruesome in the early takes, and they had to cut it down a little bit because they didn't want it to be too vile. But I wish they kept it in. I wish we'd seen him get fucking ripped apart by the dogs, because that was, I mean, again, that's another great scene in terms of like dialogue, in terms of writing. That's just fantastic. I love Ramsay's confidence and his cockiness as a character, for him to be so, I don't know, so full of himself. He, again, a little bit like, he sort of thinks he's like Olenna in a way where he thinks he's in control of every scenario, but he's sloppy and he makes mistakes. And he's like trying to overpower.
Bastards, like even when he kills Rickon, That's so good.
Oh yeah, well that's
such a power move. Like, but it good is in the sense like it's such a power move. Like it's so. So I've been watching like the behind the scenes stuff for like season 6, 7, and 8.
I need to watch.
And I saw like Orlena speech that she makes after she drinks the poison was she did 11 takes, in every take where she downed the entire glass of wine. By the way,
love that.
And then
that's
for Ramsay's, so for Ramsay's death, the dogs that they used for that scene were actually like proper like dangerous dogs.
Oh shit.
So when they were filming it, nobody was actually allowed to be in the space where the dogs were.
You could tell it was CGI.
And if not, they were all on like So it's like it was done with like a football on like a mount where it goes with the ball, and like they're all like harnessed and like all had to be held up with harnesses. All the crew had to step away from the cameras and stuff when they were filming it. Like, and it pays off. Like the dogs were supposed to be menace and stuff like that. So
it was when you see the dog bite down on his fucking chin.
Yeah,
you know what it is. It's again. It's that, as I was saying. It's that confidence, and it's that I love that he was trying to even still sort of. He knew. Thing is, Ramsay in that point, he knows he's dead. He's been locked up, and Sansa wants to kill him. Jon wants to kill him. He's lost everything, and he's still acting like a cocky little prick. And he has the goal to sort of push. And he goes, "Well, these dogs are loyal.
Yeah,
they're not gonna attack me. They're not gonna hurt me." And the way she says, like you said it yourself, you haven't fed them in a week, and there's a look, and there's a great performance from him because he looks at her, and then there's sort of like that smile and that sort of sarky little grin just goes, and he's like, "Fuck, I'm actually dead here. Like this is it." Because she's right.
I got it. Death. I've got to give it to the one that started it all, Ned Stark. There still to this day there was not a bone in my body. There was not an inch of my life that thought Ned Stark was going to get killed in the first season.
I remember
genuinely.
I said to my girlfriend in that episode, I was like, "Oh man, like I really fucking like this character. I hope they don't kill him off because I don't really know too much about him, but I'm really enjoying watching Ned that episode."
It's like not even.
Fuck's sake.
It was obviously the beginning, how it all started, how Game of Thrones, how like it kicks everything off, but also it's the first one where it's like, okay, they have the balls to do this.
Yeah,
like,
which is good.
No one is safe.
I think the one thing I did say to Lily is I said that I was like, I don't think that Ned will be in every. I don't think he'll make it to the end because I was like, well, Sean Bean's too big of an actor at this point in time in his career that I don't think they could afford to sign him on a contract for multiple seasons. And I think I was right. The sense
are there
any
characters that you thought wouldn't make it all the way through but did?
Arya, Sansa.
Really?
100%. Yeah, I thought they'd all be dead by the end.
I cannot believe Tyrion made it to the end.
I can. That's his whole thing, man. His whole thing is to be a cockroach, is to get through.
I never, ever thought he'd make it to the end.
He's a good talker. Bronn.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Can't believe he fucking made it.
Bronn of the Blackwater, yeah.
Yeah.
Tyrion's was like, I just can't. Like, I was in the last, I was like, I cannot believe this. I was like, I cannot believe this.
Okay, so I want to talk about shit deaths as well, because I've just thought as well, Stannis we kind of brushed past.
Yeah.
That's fucking bullshit, by the way. I am so annoyed. When that happened, I was like, I cannot fucking believe that they're going to kill off Stannis Baratheon after 4 seasons. I didn't mind them killing him off. That made sense. I love that story was fucking brilliant towards the end.
Yeah.
I really wasn't fucking with it in season 2. But season 4, season 5, when he's desperate and he's getting disheveled and he's got his stubble. And he kills his daughter, which is crazy. So and then his wife kills himself. Half of his fleet disappear, and he still decides to go and attack. He was always going to lose. And then you get that bit where he's at the tree, and Brienne's stood there. He doesn't even know who the fuck she is, really. He doesn't even recognize her. Yeah. And she tells him, and then kills her.
Brienne.
But we don't see her kill him. Not only that, but we don't see her reaction to killing him. I can't stand that, and I think Brienne becomes a little bit annoying in that little 2-season gap. I'll tell you why. She doesn't get any good character moments. Like, that would have been perfect. Like, she has been thinking about that for so long. She's on a different mission entirely, but she sees Stannis, and she takes her opportunity and she kills him. I would have loved to have seen her kill him, behead him, and then take a moment of reflection and just think and just start breaking down crying or something. Like her
'Cause
entire thing was protecting Renly, who died under her watch.
Her whole original thing was like I am a knight, or I want to be a knight, but I've broke, like I couldn't fulfill one of my oaths. Like that's her whole thing with that's why she's so dedicated with Sandra and Arya, because she doesn't want to fail again and to skip out on that. And I fully I love the build up to Sansa's death, like all that kind of stuff. It's just a shame that we didn't get to see the moment on camera and see anything from.
I have a feeling it's. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm just guessing based off what I've seen. Because I have a feeling it's something to do with the actor. Because who plays Stannis? Because did you know he's never seen Game of Thrones? He's never watched it.
Has he not?
No, he didn't give a shit. He genuinely didn't have a clue what it was. He was just like, I'll do it, and did it as a job, and then fucked off.
Yeah.
Fair play. I mean, I respect that, but yeah. What do you think of Cersei and Jaime's death?
I don't know. It's. I'm glad to see them dead. I'm not gonna lie. I'm
disappointed in Jaime.
Do you know what? I really wish. This is an issue with the last season, not with any of this. Jaime's character, hate him in the first season.
Oh yeah,
love him for the rest of it.
Yeah,
but again, it's my issue with the pacing and the finale is there is not a bone in my body that thinks Jaime should have relapsed and gone back to Cersei. It really fucked me off because it was again. I disagree. Actually, it was out of the blue, but it was so rushed.
I don't think
there was no build up between it. It was he's with Brienne, he's with Cersei. You saw no.
But it's not. I don't think it was about that though. I think he was.
I think he gets captured again.
I think. Sorry.
And then he gets captured again.
Yeah, I think that for me with Jaime, I think he redeems himself, but he's always his one Achilles heel is Cersei. His love for Cersei, his undying love for Cersei throughout the whole show. It's even when he's confronting Olenna, he knows he'd rather not be doing this. He knows he's fighting for a losing side, but he has no choice because of his undying love to Cersei. And the fact of the matter is, him going back at the end made complete sense to me. Okay, it was rushed. And the thing is, we'll talk about the final season after this, but I think, for me as a character, I think Jaime was right to go back there. And you know what? I love the line between them two where it's they're holding each other and it's nothing else matters. And that's their final sort of moment together before they get crushed.
I understand the symbolism, in the crypt, all the exits are blocked. They are quite literally cornered. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's that they are finally got backed into a corner and can't go anywhere. And again, it sets up perfectly for Tyrion to find them and to get the moment with Tyrion.
I think that made it better. I think if it wasn't for that moment with Tyrion finding their bodies, it wouldn't have been as good. It wouldn't have hit as hard. But it's so sad. And it's so Cersei deserved more comeuppance than that. But fine. That's what we got.
And again, I understand Jaime's character. That's it. I respect Jaime's ending. For me though, it's with the pacing. To me, it felt, and it's one of. And I know one of the big issues with the finale is the pacing. It's one of the only ones where I felt like his character was rushed at the end. That switch was so rushed.
That's fair enough. Me. Yeah, I think I something we can talk about with the final season. Before we do that, because I want to just praise it one more time. This show, I chose my lighting appropriately for this. I want to talk about the beginning, or pretty much the best episode of the show. I think, is the Winds of Winter, which is episode 10 of season 6. And it is fucking brilliant. And this is well regarded, right? But the thing is, you have stuff like the Battle of the Bastards that you know is coming. You have the Red Wedding, which you know is coming. You know something's going to happen in the finale, the Long Night. You know those things are coming. Shall I tell you what I didn't know was coming? The fucking explosion of the Sept. That whole thing. The Light of the Seven, right? Yeah. I remember, and I'll tell a little anecdote, is I am a big film music fan. I listen to a lot of film soundtracks just on a day-to-day. And Ramin Djawadi, who is the composer for Game of Thrones, but also Westworld. I'm familiar with him because of his work on Westworld, and I love his soundtrack for Westworld. And as I've been watching Game of Thrones, I've been listening to the soundtracks of the appropriate seasons. And I got a little bit carried away one day, and I was listening, and I was listening to season 6 whilst I was halfway through it. And then I was looking at his profile on Spotify, and it was Game of Thrones main title theme, and it had a certain amount of listens. And then there was a track called Light of the Seven, which had way more listens. And I was like, wow, that's weird. And I messaged a work colleague who is a diehard Game of Thrones fan. Like, she's read like the books before the show even fucking existed, and is a big fan, very knowledgeable, and also appreciates the score as well. I messaged her and I was like, "That's crazy! Like, looks like I'm really interested to see what this track is and like when it's used." She immediately was like, "Do not listen to that track," and I was like, "Whoa, okay, I'm interested." And I didn't click on it, didn't listen to it. Then the episode comes, and it starts, and there's this wonderfully haunting use of the piano, and I think that's what works so well about it immediately. And I think he's talked about this in interviews as a composer. It's the first time piano was ever used in any piece of music for Game of Thrones, ever.
Was it?
The first time the piano was ever used, so immediately you're hit with a sense of unease and something new and something slightly uncomfortable. As soon as it started, I thought, but this is going to be the Light of the Seven. And this is going to be and this is immediately something's wrong here. And I was absolutely in awe, and I have become moderately more and more obsessed over time with the finale of season 6, because of just how shocking and incredible and brilliant that whole thing was. Like, I was blown fucking away, no pun intended. It was such an incredible piece of television and that has the source that the final season is missing because of the build-up, right? The explosion of the Light of the Seven, that only works because you've had 6 seasons to build up to this point. Where
we've also had an entire season based on like the Zealots and stuff like that.
Two seasons.
Sorry.
Because at the end of season 5, that's when Cersei got her atonement and the shame thing. That's been going on for 2 seasons at this point. You are almost rooting for Cersei to get her payback, her revenge.
Only time I ever felt sorry for Cersei.
Oh yeah, show. I had
to actively be like, no, she is a bitch. Like, no,
but that's the genius of this show, is that it takes a character that you fundamentally despise and makes you feel sorry for them because they put them in a situation. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what works.
I hated him.
Yeah, first couple of seasons he's a bit of a prick, and then he becomes redeemable. And Cersei, I don't think is ever redeemable, but I think that you feel sorry for her, and then it's not that you're rooting for her because you don't like her as a character, but you're like, it'll be such a cool scene when she gets her revenge. And I can't lie, seeing the fucking set blow up, seeing all the fucking zealots get blown up, Marjorie, rip.
Yeah.
And then her look out the window, just sipping her red wine and grinning, is such a fucking great moment. And like, Grandmaster Pycelle being fucking stabbed in the basement by the kids, Tommen throwing himself out the window. All of that happens in that first 15 minutes whilst this one track plays. And it is fucking beautiful. That piece of music has been on my Spotify every fucking day since I've watched that episode. It's the best. That piece of music is gorgeous, and the scene is elevated because of it. I think the opening 10 minutes to that episode may be one of my favourite scenes in all of television ever. And I never, ever thought I'd say that about Game of Thrones, because I was resistant to ever watching this show, because everyone tells you it's fucking brilliant. Everyone tells you about all the stuff that Battle of the Bastards, Red Wedding. This thing caught me off guard. It was brand new, something I had no idea to expect, and it was some of the best television I've ever seen.
And that's one of the things with Game of Thrones, is I think one of the things I love the most about it is whenever you hear about Game of Thrones, and I don't know that this could just be me, it could be you hear, you're a bastard Jon Snow, winter is coming, incest and dragons. That's all you ever fucking hear, right? That's all any fucker ever goes on about Game of Thrones, right? And going to Game of Thrones, you're like, well, that's the main thing. That's all the biggest stuff, right? Incest is barely in it. Fucking barely.
House of the Dragon be like, oh god.
Oh, exactly. It's like House of the Dragon, right? Dragons, fucking last couple of seasons. And this is not me. I'm not having complaints at all, by the way. This is not me. It might come across that way, but like all this stuff, it's like Game of Thrones is so popular, but also kind of low key, for reasons that some of the greatest plot lines and some of the greatest moments are so overshadowed by everything else. All of the Stannis stuff, I'm not being funny, all the shit with the Flame God, all the stuff with the No-Face God, like all that stuff's completely overshadowed. All of Bran's story, all the Three-Eyed Raven stuff, you will never ever ever hear anybody talk about that in Game of Thrones. Like again, this episode, all we've gone on about is this kind of stuff. It's like those other things, like the whole Stannis stuff. all the stuff with the Brotherhood of the Banners, like all the Fire God stuff is such a massive story point. Stannis is such a major character in the first half of the show, but you do not hear any fucker talking about him because it's so overshadowed by everything else, and that's why it's so genius. Because even if you think you know everything about Game of Thrones going into it, even if you've listened to every fucker in the world talking about Game of Thrones, there is a storyline. There is not even an episode. There is a storyline that you have no idea it exists, and it is one of the best storylines in the whole show. And again, that's why I'm saying it's so popular, but it's so low key at the same time. And that was my thing going into it. Like, I kept saying the stuff with Stannis and the stuff with Lady Melisandre. I was like, I've never once heard anybody say anything about a Stannis Baratheon. I've never heard his name once before watching this show. And that's again one of the greatest moments. Like, and the Sept stuff. Sorry, I'll come.
Yeah. But it's all part of it,
clear,
right? It's the best thing about the show, and I think that's what you need, that element of surprise. People will try to get you into Game of Thrones, and I think that's just, they go the wrong way about it. When I was in sixth form, and it was sort of around the time the finale was coming out, the final season, I had a friend tell me, he was like, I'm going to show you this scene from Game of Thrones, and if you don't like this scene, you're never going to get into it, right? And he showed me the scene where the dragon kind of stops Bronn and Jaime's little, like, fiesta, like mid-season 6, when they get, like, or season 7 maybe, where, like, they're like, they've just killed Lady Olenna and Tyrell, and then they're kind of taking the gold back to King's Landing.
Yeah, and it comes across.
And it's where Bronn has the big thing.
That season.
And they've showed that.
I wouldn't have shown that
they showed that battle, and I watched it, and like the fire and all that sort of thing. And like from a filmmaking perspective, yeah, it's brilliant. But what the thing is, people are missing is, it's like, you need the build-up, you need the story, you need the characters. It took me a long time to give a shit about these characters, but by the time I did, it became some of the richest storytelling I've ever seen. And that's because you have time to build up to it. I wasn't locked into Game of Thrones till like season 4. And then by that point, I give a shit and I knew the characters. But now I can go back and watch the first 4 seasons. I'll probably love it.
Yeah, I was similar. It was like season 1, I was so locked in. Season 2, I didn't enjoy. Season 3, I was like, this is getting better than season 4. I was like, this is like. But this is the thing though. For me, it's like, I love the battle stuff. Like I said, Battle of the Bastards is probably my favorite episode of the show. Like that is the standout.
So mine's Winds of Winter is like one right after.
So,
but that is the peak there.
It's like episodes. And season 6 is like, everyone says season 6 is the best. It is. It's just, you can't deny season 6 is the best. It's the best production. It's the best, like, some of the best storylines. Like, it's the best like payoffs and stuff. Battle of the Bastards I love, but I wouldn't show people the battles, because I don't believe the battles are the best part of Game of Thrones.
No.
Really, there's not that many of them. You don't get very many big battles until Battle of the Bastards onwards.
Show me a Tyrion dialogue scene. Show me that the court scene where he's defending himself. Show me any of that, and I'm like, I'm game.
Any of Littlefinger's speeches in the entire show,
don't
right?
Tell me, don't start about that prick. I hate Baelish.
Such a good character. Such a good character.
Boring to watch, I thought. I hated him. I really didn't like him at all.
Character.
I mean, he's my little brother's favourite Game of Thrones character. And I've got to a point where I'm like, he will double down on it. I go, this is the best. And I know he's doing it a little bit for a meme, but I have to sort of go like, mate, your favourite Game of Thrones character's a fucking nonce. I mean, I just don't enjoy it. And I loved when he got fucking killed. Good fucking riddance, man.
I mean, but then at the same time, it's like, who's your favorite? Well, if you had to say your favorite Game of Thrones character, who is it?
I don't have a favorite, man. Olenna.
Tyrion and Martin, Jon.
Tyrion and Olenna, and maybe Jon. Yeah.
Tyrion's a nonce. Sansa.
Yeah, didn't consummate it though. Didn't even try. Yeah. Didn't he? Well, he wasn't. He was more about protecting. And
that's
her,
why.
Whereas Baelish just fucking snugged her.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
it's that's one of the things when you watch Game of Thrones, you just have to kind of like, can I just let out your minds?
I said this when we're watching House of the Dragon, and you'll sort of see why when you get just further in. There's the point where you have to just go like, I have to disband my knowledge of like modern society and how we function, because it does not apply in this world, and I have to just look past that.
It's mad that the TV show, it's like they actively make it better, like they actively age up characters, but again, they are still not the age where it's like it's like you're still the age where you're like, oh, this is okay, like still like The books, like, I'm sure in the books, Tommen's supposed to be like 10-year-old.
Yeah,
like,
something like he probably
when he becomes king.
Yeah. It's
and Marjorie's supposed to be like 17.
Yeah,
like,
it's fucked. It is fucked. There's so many elements that are just fucked like that. Before we go into...
Cersei's supposed to be like 60 or like 17, 18, I think. Something like that. Not Cersei, Daenerys is supposed to be
Daenerys.
like...
Yeah, that makes sense.
Daenerys is supposed to be like 70. Yeah, it's... But yeah, sorry.
I think... So to wrap it up, I think we should touch on the last season. Because something that everyone talks about is there's a controversial thing which happens. Now, we've both watched it. Now, I know what that is. You don't, do you? You don't know what bit of the finale everyone hates.
Should I just pop off and say what I think about the finale, and then you can go on what is right? Like, genuinely, like, hands up. I quite like the ending of the story.
Yep, me too.
I quite like everyone's endings. I knew going into it that Bran was going to become king. That's the only thing I knew.
How did you know that going in?
I had it spoiled like a couple of weeks ago leading up to it. Like, it was one of those things, yeah. So, and I was like, what the fuck is this? Why on earth is this? And again, Bran's storyline is another tangent. Bran is another storyline that I don't like as much.
I don't give a shit about Bran.
However, I think it's down to the adaptation. I have a sneaking suspicion that Bran gets so much more shit in the books than he does in the TV show, and obviously just timing, it doesn't work out. Like, I feel like Bran was missing certain elements, and he was just dotted in every once in a while, whereas if you had more time, more run time, longer seasons, all that kind of stuff. So going into it, I was like, Dad, this is going to be terrible. Like, Bran, why? Why would Bran become king? And then I watched it, and I'm like, do you know what? It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does.
Tyrion becoming Hand of the King makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Jon being sent at the wall and going living with the wildlings makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Like, Sansa's becoming Queen of the North makes so much sense. Arya's, we already talked about.
Yeah.
Again, Arya, I don't mind going traveling. Makes so much sense for her character.
Yeah.
But the where it ends up, where it ends, Daenerys' death, all that kind of stuff, I like it as a bundled package. My issue with it is, and again, this is the production side of it, is the first couple of episodes of season 8, they are fast paced, but they get like up until the long night, it's good. The pacing's quicker, but it's not as jarring. And then episode 4 happens, and it's the back end of episode 4. It's all the stuff leading up to Miss Sanday's death, and I don't like Miss Sanday's death at all.
No, that seems so out of nowhere.
Miss Sanday's death is so jarring because it changes everybody's character so drastically. And again, it's the pacing that's the issue, not the actual writing. I don't like how Grey Worm's character ends, but that's because it's so jarring that it's like that he changes.
That's the issue with me.
The issue is the pacing, not the actual story.
I understand why they did that, and I understand why, because it's not, and people they love to spin this sort of excuse of going, oh well, they didn't have the source material to work from, so they just wanted to do it like quicker and whatever. I don't think it is. You know, they didn't have source material from the end of season 5.
You can't use that excuse because the greatest stuff in Game of Thrones,
the
Sept and Battle of the Bastards,
that's exactly what I was just about to say. So yeah, the Sept and Battle of the Bastards isn't in the book, and that is some of the best of the show, and as is everything else. The problem isn't that. The reason they probably put the fucking accelerator on for the last season is because you need to think how grueling these shoots would have been. And these actors have been doing it for almost a fucking decade at that point.
Yeah.
They are knackered. And I think they talked about that. Like, I'm sure it's been said since that. I think a lot of I think like Kit Harington and Emilia Clarke, I think definitely have some sort of like
whiplash
reluctation to wanting to be part of Game of Thrones now and wanting to be part of the future of it, because I think they're very much like, they didn't like, it's not that they didn't like the way it ended. I get the vibe that almost they just have trauma from how full on that show was.
Coming off the back of like season 5 was a machine.
Yeah.
Like, in basic production standpoint, like, bearing in mind that, so The Long Night, again, 11-week shoot, like, and you should watch behind the scenes, because there's some things that you'll see, right, where it's like characters in costume in pre-call 10-hour pre-calls, right, being picked up at midnight to be in costume and makeup for 10 hours before being on set, right, and then doing an entire day on set. Like, it must be so jarring. Night shoots, fucking shooting in Iceland for the North, like, it must be jarring. And I can imagine
it's a lot of work.
The ball for Game of Thrones, and I don't know what the release schedule was. I don't know when the stuff came out, what the gap was between. But to me, when you have a machine that's that popular, the ball will not stop rolling. The moment you call wrap on your season, pre-production will start the next day.
Yeah.
for the stuff like that. When it's so
That's
popular,
the thing, and
the ball will
there's a
not
demand,
stop
there's
rolling.
a demand, and they almost were like, I felt like they were trying to get it done. Now, I don't think the problem. I think the problem with the final 2 seasons, for me, is 100% that if season 7 and season 8 were both 10 episodes long, like every other season, I think it would have been a perfect ending. I think it would have really worked, and I think all the characters would have had enough time to really develop into their final thing.
It's mad though because I haven't done the math, but season 8 and nearly all the episodes are an hour and a half, if that makes sense. So it must be close to a normal runtime, but it still feels mental, like the pace. But if that makes sense.
There's an art to doing something episodic. Like, if you watch like a 10-hour, you couldn't watch. It's like the whole thing of like you can binge a series of hour-long episodes of like 10-hour-long episodes, but you couldn't watch a 3-hour film. It's all about pacing and how you form episodic shows like that, right? And it's very. They should have spaced it out and had more episodes. 6 episodes isn't enough, right? No. Because you think of it, people watch an episode at a time. They'll watch an episode because in 6 weeks you're at the finale instead of 8 or 10 weeks. You're taking longer, and even when you're binging it, like you're still feeling that in every episode. You're remembering what happens in that episode.
It's like
it's too much.
Isn't it, as well?
It's almost like if they put the Battle of the Bastards and the Explosion of the Sept in one episode, it just wouldn't. It would have been too much. It would have been a great episode, but it would have been too much.
And again,
I think,
it's like, sorry, go on, finish what you're saying.
I just think like with the ending, my thoughts are that actually I really like pretty much everything they do. A lot of people, I know what a lot of people have a problem with, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but I think generally, like, a lot of the decisions that they make sense for the story. I understand why people wouldn't be satisfied, because I think it needed more time to cook, more time to develop before you get to that conclusion. But I genuinely feel that the people who think that this is not the ending that George R.R. Martin wanted are kidding themselves. This is 100% the ending that he wanted.
I was going to comment on this. So this goes into the Winds of Winter argument. So obviously, we don't know. Like, we don't know not seen Game of Thrones. So essentially, Game of Thrones has X amount of books, and the last book, which is supposed to be 3 seasons of TV show, by the way, is supposed to still, like, it's been written for God knows how long, right? I am fully convinced that this book will never come out. It will never come out. Never, ever, ever. But my reason for George R. R. Martin said, like, when I go to write it, I read my previous chapters, so I don't really like it. I'm fully convinced that as much as he has turned around in interviews and said that the ending of the show is not how he ends the book. He would end the books, right? This is what he has said this in interviews. I'm fully convinced, and you cannot convince me otherwise, that the Game of Thrones TV show is the actual ending for Game of Thrones. Yeah. But because of the backlash, he has no idea how else to end the story, and is therefore just choosing not to do it.
But I would prefer him just do it. I think that is the ending, and I think it works. I just think it needs time. People are fucking ridiculous when it comes to stuff like this. The backlash to the end, I've read into it now, and the backlash, the people are still bitter this many years later. It reminds me of The Last Jedi. It's exactly the same. It's entitled fans who have had so long with this show that they feel a sense of how they think it should have ended. The art of that finale, whether you love it or hate it, you have to admit, there is a sort of feeling of it being bittersweet. King's Landing's fucking destroyed. All of the main threats are destroyed. And for the first time in the show, you have peace, right? As such. And you have... Like, Jon Snow had to kill Daenerys. It was the only way to do that.
Yeah.
The dragon melting the Iron Throne, cool, visual. The dragon flying off of Daenerys, cool. Jon Snow getting locked up, that whole thing. Bran being king, I think makes sense. He is...
Yeah, it does, 100%.
His entire thing is being about, almost like an oracle of history.
That
and
whole
the future
speech that Tyrion makes.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about... It's about history and it's about story. It's not about being a good ruler. It's not about being a judge of character. Brandon Stark isn't Brandon Stark anymore. He's the three-eyed raven. He's an oracle of knowledge. He's not... a conscious person who can make the bad decisions. Sorry. Yeah.
Also, banger name, by the way. Such a
Bran
great
the Broken,
title.
Yeah.
Bran the Broken.
Imagine if he hadn't come up with that himself, though. I don't know if Tyrion's just sort of made that up on the spot, and he's just like, and Bran's just like, what the fuck, bro? I didn't. Just call me Bran. Like, what the fuck? But I think for me, I like all of that, and yeah.
So what is it that people don't like about it?
People were and still are very, very angry about the fact that Bran is made king.
Yeah, I knew it was,
and I think it's such a bullshit. I genuinely, I watched it and I was thinking when he said Bran the Broken, I was like, oh, that makes complete sense. Yeah. I did not like Bran's story at all for pretty much most of it. It's not that I think it's bad. It's just not for me. I didn't fuck with it. I don't think it's bad storytelling. I think it's good storytelling. I just didn't like it, and I thought that reveal was good, and I thought that actually made complete sense from a story perspective. And I'll tell you why. It's the Star Wars effect, right? And I'll tell you for why. The whole thing with Star Wars, for example, the reason why the Rise of Skywalker doesn't work for me in the ending of that is because Rey finishes that as a Jedi, having not learned anything, having not really changed, and let me cook.
Sorry,
the ending of that.
So right.
The ending of that is you are what stops the Rise of Skywalker? What stops the events of the Empire and the First Order or whatever coming back again with more Sith, more thing, right? The whole point of it, the sequel trilogy of Star Wars is that, oh, it happens again. The Empire come up and they're the First Order and they take over. And by the end of Return of the Jedi, we've got Luke, who's just a Jedi, and he sets up a new Jedi Order. By the end of Rise of Skywalker, we've got Rey, who's a Jedi, and we'll probably do the same thing. What's to stop history from repeating itself? What lessons have the characters learned, and why is history gonna? What's the new equilibrium? There isn't in Star Wars, right? There isn't. You're ending the same way as you ended the original trilogy, where it's sort of like, well, what's to stop all this happening again, right? The difference between that and I think the genius of making Bran king is that he's not a man with selfish ambitions. He is an oracle of knowledge, and it is about forming a new equilibrium in this world. For the first time in 8 seasons, you are watching Westeros in peace. You are watching it form a new government, a whole new era of this world. The Night King is defeated. Those old ancient stories are moot now. You've got an oracle of knowledge in the past who can see anything he wants as the king. And that is a new equilibrium. It should feel weird. It should feel wrong. It should feel bittersweet. And I think that's exactly what it feels like. For me, when I watched it, it felt sad because it felt like everything's over and people are dead and that's it. It's the same feeling of a war ending, like when a massive war rages on for years and then it ends. There's this eerie sort of silence. There's this eerie sort of feeling of this is it. It's done and there's peace and we finally achieved it and now we reflect on everyone we've lost, everything we've come to lose and all of this senseless violence for the sake of sitting down and just forming something new. But the good thing about Game of Thrones and that ending is that it ends in a completely different place to where it started, as a kingdom, from the characters, from everything. Bran is the perfect person to be on the throne because it's not just some other selfish person from a house. Bran Stark is not Bran Stark anymore. He is the three-eyed raven. He has no allegiance, really, to the Stark household, to the north. Hence why Sansa wants to be Queen of the North. Him being on the throne, I think, creates a new equilibrium that shows that all of the characters have learned and have changed, and it makes you feel like, okay, this war, this violence will not happen again.
I 100% agree. I think it's the hunt. Like, you've absolutely cooked there with that explanation.
Sorry, that's my waffling done. But yeah,
you've completely that. You've hit the nail on the head, because for me, it's like I always looked at it from Jon Snow's perspective, and I always looked at the ending in my head, not the one that I would have wanted, but it's like, oh well, Jon kills Daenerys and he becomes king because he's the rightful king, so the story ends. But you start to go like my girlfriend doesn't like the ending because she doesn't like that Bran is the king.
Jon could never be king. That's the truth of it.
And this is and not even down to Jon can't be king. There are story reasons, not just for Jon. Like, Jon is the rightful king. Don't get me wrong. Jon should be. Jon's the rightful heir. Jon should be on the throne.
Well, right? The whole rightful heir thing is the problem with it's about breaking the wheel, right? It's exactly what Daenerys wants.
Jon being king is wrong. There are multiple things wrong with it. So, for example, Jon becomes the king. So Jon kills Daenerys, right? Becomes a queen slayer. No punishment.
Right. Yeah.
That's Jaime Lannister.
Yeah. It's the whole thing. The whole thing is like,
and then
Jon could not
becomes and then Jon becomes the king, and then that's a royal a house who was not decided to go on the throne. Yeah. Jon is then king of the North, so all the Northmen align with him. So he is the king. Jon is the king. So all 7 kingdoms. So that's Sansa's story out the window, completely out the window.
Yeah,
like it's that kind of. This is me. again, not the ending at all. But
it wouldn't have worked. But also the bare bones. John didn't want to be king. John wanted to. John said as he was leaving to Tormund, he said, "I wish I could go with you. I wish I could go and live with the wildlings. I wish I could." And that's what he did. He went north of the wall, and that's.
I'm so happy John went to live with the wildlings.
I think all of it. I think from a story perspective, makes sense. And the more you think about it, the more you peel over these layers of like, well, actually, what did Daenerys want? Daenerys wanted to break the wheel. Daenerys couldn't have breaking the wheel is breaking that feeling of tradition. They're rightful heirs to the throne. Daenerys used that to gain her leverage, but what she really wanted was to break the wheel. Now, I'm not saying she would have been happy with the ending. She certainly wouldn't, because she got too big. She got too obsessed with her own ego and too, all powerful, right? And believed herself to be this unbelievable
and
thing.
It's no longer about blood. It's no longer about the blood that runs through your veins. It's about it's about being the right person for the job.
But that's actually, you've broken the wheel by putting Bran there, because he is no man. He is not a person anymore. He has no allegiance to a banner or a house. He is, although he is a Stark, yes, he is like something different. And I think that's what creates a new equilibrium, which tells you that this is the right ending, because you can't. What's to stop it? If anyone else was king, like if Jon was king, what's to stop there being a season 9? Where someone else rebels against that. Like, that's Bran. That's the new norm, and that's
if Jon becomes king, you're repeating the cycle. Will inevitably repeat of seasons one through 8.
If Jon became king, the wheel continues.
Yeah.
Daenerys wanted to break the wheel, and she did. I don't think she really knew how to do it, but I think Bran becoming king is exactly what breaks the wheel.
Yeah.
That's how it works. And I think that's why the ending's so bittersweet, because, again, it's that whole thing of reflecting, and it's sad because the show is over as you know it. And it's very mournful. It's like an epilogue. And I think it really works for me, personally. I think that all they needed was a few more episodes and a bit longer of development between with Bran, and his character and Jon's character and and Daenerys as well. I think Daenerys had a great story idea, but needed more time. And as you said about Missandei, like that should have been longer. I wanted to see Daenerys almost be like Anakin Skywalker, where we see her fall from a goddess to evil, and you see that in her.
I wanted to see it with Daenerys. I wanted to see the coin land.
Yeah,
because they constantly talk about with the Targaryen, it's a coin flip, and you're just waiting for the coin to land. And for me, Daenerys' descent into madness is more of a snap than a coin flip. It feels very sudden. Whereas I wanted to see that Missandei's death, you should have had a beat and a full episode or like a couple of episodes where Daenerys is on her own and you can see the coin spinning and you can see it getting closer and closer to the ground.
Yeah.
And eventually it rests. And it's not in the moment where she snaps. You can see it in her eyes that she's ready to do this and she knows that she's going to do this.
You're so right. And I think that's it. There is a great story in there, and I just wish they had more time to develop it. But by no means do I think it's bad. I think I think it's rushed, and I think it's maybe misjudged about how much time they needed, and they clearly were kind of patching it together as they went along. And
it's the pacing that threw it. Like, it's not the actual story that I don't like. It's the pacing. I think makes it more jarring.
It's like I can see it all working. I can see it all working, but and I can appreciate that. And that's why I like it. But what isn't there is that actual context to get you to that point in certain areas, and I think that's its downfall. But I think we've kind of really rattled through everything there. I mean, that's a heavy, beefy episode, and I'm very happy with that.
Very happy.
We will, if you guys enjoy this, we'll be talking about more Game of Thrones stuff in the near future. We're both watching House of the Dragon right now. So, of course, we'll probably talk about House of the Dragon at some point. Yeah. We'll also probably be talking about House of the Dragon when it comes out the next season, season 3 next year. And I believe we'll also talk about A Night of the Seven Kingdoms
I was just about to mention this as well, yes. I'm very excited. Very excited. Do you know about Night of the Seven Kingdoms? Do you know what
I do. I have been told.
It's set like in between House of the Dragons and Game of Thrones.
So 100 years after House of the Dragon, 100 years before Game of Thrones.
So it's like slap bang in the middle. So it's quite cool. It sounds like a really cool concept, actually.
So it's about, it's almost like an anthology thing of different stories about a knight and I think
and a squire.
Companion, a knight and a squire going through the Seven Kingdoms and just being this really like massive beefy force of nature, but actually really nice.
I'm kind of I'm hoping with the success of House of the Dragons, and I'm hoping Night of the Seven Kingdoms as well, that I'm hoping they reignite the anthology series that they were going to do, because they were, after Game of Thrones finished, which House of the Dragons kind of is. They were setting up to do an anthology series where each season is about the origins of the major houses. And they announced that they were going to be doing so obviously Lannister, Stark, Targaryen, which kind of is House of the Dragons, or at least
House of the Dragon is the Targaryen origin.
Yeah, and the Snow surname that we're going to be talking about, and the origins of where the bastard Snow surname comes from, which is interesting. But all the Tyrells, all the Greys, no, thing is though, the Snow surname is an interesting concept for why all the bastards get that surname, because it's either they talk about it in the show where the bastards even get the surname Sam or Snow.
Yeah,
and it's Jon got Snow because he went to the north but was born in the desert, so it's really weird. Because obviously, Ramsay Bolton's son was Snow.
Ramsay Snow,
yeah, Ramsay Snow. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, but they were talking about doing that, which I'm hoping they reignite, because I think it'll be interesting to see the origins of these major, because it's obviously referenced and spoken about. And I love House of the Dragons so much because even in the first 2 episodes, the lore is phenomenal. The stuff
I have some issues with House of the Dragon, but I overall I think it's a really, really good show. The one thing you have to remember with House of the Dragon is that it's not Game of Thrones, and you're doing the same thing as I did, going straight into it after Game of Thrones. It hasn't got the same level of depth, because it's adapted almost from a history of the Targaryens.
Because even the first 2 episodes is a 6-month jump. It's but I love
just wait.
It feels like less.
Just wait.
It feels less. Well, the book again, the House of the Dragons is set on the second, and the whole book, it's called a House of Fire and Blood or whatever it's called. That
Fire
whole
Blood,
book is based from Aegon the Conqueror with Balerion the Black Dread all the way through till where House of Dragons will eventually finish.
Yeah.
But I like that, and I like that they mention all the stuff about High Valyria, getting so much more stuff with Balerion. Yeah, Balerion the Dread is so much nicer.
It's cool. The fun thing about this, and I dare not revisit it now, is that Game of Thrones actually spoils House of the Dragon. Have you knew this?
Does it?
So there's 2 scenes in the show that I do remember, and I've been since told about, where it's okay, I'm not going to revisit those 2 scenes. There's a scene where Joffrey is taking I think it's Marjorie through the crypt to all the dragon heads, and he basically goes, "That's how that one died. That's how that one died. That's how that one died," and showing off. And some of those dragons are in Game of Thrones, in House of the Dragon, and are alive.
Yeah.
And the other one, you might remember this one, is just before Stannis' daughter gets burned at the stake. She's reading a book, The Dance of Dragons, or Dance of the Dragons, and she talks to Stannis. And she talks to that is the story of House of the Dragon.
Yes,
yeah. So you've got to, if you go back and listen and watch that,
I know it spoils it, but I quite like that it is intertwined and it is thought about and it is referenced, the dragon skulls and stuff. I love, again, it's the Star Wars thing. I love that it's intertwined. I love that I could, I love the continuity, and I love how intertwined it is. And and
it's almost like Old Republic, I
fucking love that in the first episode of House of the Dragon, you see the fucking Balerion the Dread skull, and it's a fucking shrine. I love it so because it's referenced in Game of Thrones that after the Mad King was killed, because all the dragon skulls used to be in the throne room. That's where they used to be, and they moved them down to the crypt to essentially, Robert wanted them moved down to the crypt because he wanted nothing to reference Targaryens. Targaryens were dead. It's a gone time. I don't want to see this shit anymore. It's that kind of stuff, which is fucking awesome.
Yeah, so cool. There's a good level of history, and I think at some point we'll definitely talk about House of the Dragon, because there's a lot to talk about there. I don't know whether we do a series at a time, probably, maybe, I don't know. But that could be quite fun. Anyway, though, I think it's time for Just News, Cooper.
Yeah, let's do it.
I haven't done it. I felt like I haven't done a Just News story in fucking ages. Honestly, I think it's been so long. Feels like it's been ages. I don't know how long it has been. But anyway, Christ, let me get the article up. Are you ready, Cooper?
I am ready.
So, today's Just News article. Teachers seize disco equipment from 12-year-old boy who hosted rave in school toilets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cal has been been up and ready to leave early that morning. He had the biggest smile on his face, so I knew he had something up his sleeve. The teachers at St. Albany... fuck. Oh my god, they're going to make me bloody sign in. You fuckers. Oh my word, you're actually going to have to get me to... Brilliant. Well, hang on, folks. The Telegraph other, I say the Telegraph, good publishers also exist. Are making me fucking sign up with the password. That's brilliant. An email to read this article. Fantastic.
Wow.
Thanks, guys. Should have checked that one before. No, I will skip the annual subscription fee. I will also skip the app for free for 7 days. Okay, cool. The teachers at St. Anthony's Catholic College in Urmston may come to regret confiscating 12-year-old Kyle Bell's disco equipment. After all, he wouldn't be the first errant schoolboy to go on to greater things after trying out his entrepreneurial skills on his classmates. All Cal wanted to do was cheer the mood and offer a service, in this case, with a little party for his fellow Year 8 pupils during troubled times.
Year 8? Oh my god.
This kid was young. But his teachers took a dim view of the affair after they discovered the event he was hosting involved music decks, speakers, and disco lights being crammed into the boys' toilets.
That's crazy that he carried them all to school with him. That's so good.
I'm so excited to get into this. Despite showing strong entrepreneurial instincts, teachers swiftly confiscated his disco equipment and phoned Kel's parents to let them know this was not the kind of thing that they would allow on school premises. Kel's mother, Louise, however, confessed that rather than telling her son off, she could only really see the funny side of it. Mm-hmm. Mrs. Bell said, "I had to laugh. It's been a terrible year, and I couldn't be angry with my son for trying to spread some cheer." When I got the call, it made perfect sense. Cal had been up, dressed, and ready to leave the school early in the morning, which was unheard of in our house. He had the biggest smile on his face, so I knew he had something up his sleeve. Besides, it was the sort of spirit that led Lord Alan Sugar to collect free remnants of fabric from local workshops to sell to rag and bone men when he was only 10. By the age of 13, he had convinced the deputy headmaster of his secondary school to invest in a printing machine and published a monthly magazine that he sold to his parents
and the
local council estate. I don't give a shit about Alan Sugar. I'll care about fucking Cal, the fucking Year 8 DJ. Likewise, Virgin boss Richard Branson. I don't give a shit about Richard Branson either. Jesus Christ. Cal had advertised the event on the picture sharing platform Snapchat a week prior. Oh my God,
what a hero.
The guest list included all Year 8 boys who were each given a Cadbury Twirl and a bottle of Lucozade once the party started, with the aspiring DJ Cal in charge of the music. I'm sorry, that is absolute fucking boss. If someone did that in our school, they'd be the most popular fucking kid. Unfortunately for him, and his fellow ravers, they were quickly rumbled, with teachers shutting down the lunchtime party after 30 minutes. 30 minutes on a lunch break ain't bad.
I wonder what gave them away. Maybe the loud music?
I don't know.
I love the idea that just in the yard, like the dinner night, it's just like, what's that noise you're hearing? Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. Honestly, like that would be absolutely mad. Like just like stumbling at the toilet. Imagine you just going in there for a piss.
Imagine you get
because it's all the Year 8 boys. Imagine if you're in a different year and you'd gone into the toilet, you'd be like, "What the fuck?"
You walk in the door, you get handed a what was it?
Cadbury's Twirl and a bottle of Lucozade.
Cadbury's Twirl and a bottle of Lucozade.
Anyway, after being rung by the school, Mrs. Bell, a hairdresser from Urmston, Manchester, asked her son to explain herself. When we asked him why he'd done it, he told us the school was boring and that he had nothing to do at lunchtime. I wish there had been a Kel when I was in school. It would have been much more fun. Music is Kel's motivation, and we couldn't be mad at him for expressing and sharing that passion. It was very inventive of him. Fucking W from the mum as well.
Amazing.
Good lad.
It's amazing.
She added the school weren't happy and explained that they had to confiscate his equipment because they couldn't facilitate such behaviour. But I could tell that that even they saw the funny side too. It sounded like they were doing their best not to laugh on the phone. After posting news of Kel's early misadventures in events management on our own social media channels, Mrs. Bell was inundated with messages of support for him, including offers of free entry to various club nights, including Midlands-based Hoochie Coochie, who described Cal as a little legend.
No way.
One music fan wrote, "The kid is doing more for the UK scene than most DJs and promoters." True.
Kale is now touring Ibiza with the same Year 8 class crew.
Yeah, he's now off his face in Ibiza.
Kale now sneaks into nightclub bathrooms in Ibiza and holds individual rave.
I think probably the worst place to be doing a rave is in like a nightclub bathroom, though.
Oh, 100%.
I feel like you're already there for the clubbing. Do you know what I mean?
Clubs are shitholes anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what? I hope he becomes a massive DJ.
I hope he
like,
does. I don't know when this article's from, but we'll... Yeah.
Like, big up. Like, it's to just spread some, like, nice joy and cheer.
Oh, this is from 2020 as well. So this kid is a bit older now.
COVID.
So this is hence the shit year thing.
Yeah,
so he would be,
year 12, wow.
He's in year 12 now.
12. Yeah, 12 or maybe year 13.
Kids in, like, sixth form or college now, or apprenticeship. Probably DJing, to be honest. He's probably DJing.
He's probably 18. He's probably close to 18. He's probably DJing.
Fair play, man. Fair play, lad. If you're out there, Cal,
yeah,
drop us a line. We'd love to have you on the podcast.
Yeah.
We'd love to get you doing some fucking remix to our title sequence.
That would be so funny. I love it. I love that. To just spread during COVID.
Yeah, good lad.
Spread some cheer. I'd love to know the music that he played though. I'd love to know what level he, like, imagine you go and he's actually like mint. Like he's like proper mixing and everything.
That's so good. This is great. I'm going to read the rest of it just so we get around. Yeah, the photo's the best bit. Supporters have offered to raise funds to replace Cal's music deck and speakers, including his local some boxing club.
You got them taken off him permanently?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
What?
Yeah. Which is
fucked
up.
Like taken away and given at the end of the day.
Yeah,
that's
fucked up from the school. You can't just steal people's equipment. That's just robbery. Mrs. Bell, who posts about Cal's escapades were shared more than 400,000 times on social media platforms, said on Friday he loves music, but he's quite overwhelmed with his newfound fame. All his school friends are calling the house telling him he's gone viral. We're just so proud that our son has brought a smile to so many people after such a difficult year. If you can't laugh, then something's not right. A spokesperson for St. Anthony's College said, "We are aware of the incident and have been investigating." That's all they can say. Oh, I love it. I love it. The little photo of him with his DJ deck. Oh, it's brilliant.
Mukama said, "If you can't laugh, then rave." Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. That's really great.
That pissed me off though that they didn't give him his equipment back. That's
what the fuck is that about? It's probably quite good equipment as well.
Like, honestly, that was either like a Christmas present, a birthday present. Maybe he saved up his pocket money to buy it. That's horseshit. That like,
especially in 2020 as well. Like, how fucking heartless do you have to be after like a whole year of that shit to be like, yeah, sorry, kid. But then also as well, I do have to think of it as like, okay, December 2020, there were still precautions at that point. Like, there was still, like, masks and, like, social distancing, and this little fucker invited a whole year group to go and rave in the toilet, giving them all fucking Cadbury's Twirls and Lucozade, so probably not the best social distancing measures, but fair play.
Just taken after the Prime Minister at the time.
Oh! Satire! Woo!
I shouldn't say that, because I took the piss out of Doctor Who for talking about that.
Yeah, exactly. So... Literally in the last episode of our podcast, you were saying how you hate... I was saying it as well, how we hate media bringing up the COVID. But this is appropriate. And this was fun. Well, thank you so much for watching, everyone. This has been a fun episode. Bloody hell.
I've loved this. I love this episode.
It's been a great episode. We've had a lot of fun talking about Game of Thrones after watching it for the last year. We'll be very excited to talk about it more in the future. House of the Dragon, Season 1 and 2, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and eventually just more Game of Thrones related stuff, because now we're fans. There's no getting rid of us. So if you're in the Game of Thrones fandom and you're new here, please do give us a follow, subscription on YouTube, follow us on Spotify with a hearty 5-star review if you haven't already. That would be greatly appreciated. You can check out all of our other episodes. This is episode God knows what, 46. We've got 45 other full-length episodes, best bits, and other special events also on this podcast.
That's mental.
Rapidly approaching our year anniversary, aren't we?
I still can't get over that.
Crazy.
I still cannot get over it.
So exciting and so lovely to have you all here. This has been a great episode, and yeah, that's that. I didn't really wrap that up very well. I sort of fumbled it towards the end, but it is what it is. You know what?
You took the piss out of me for my.
No, you know what? I've lost it. I'm becoming like dementia ridden at this point in time. It's been 45 episodes, and I'm like, welcome to episode 2 of the podcast.
Those Dornish drugs really going to his head, man.
What? Sorry.
Those Dornish drugs really going to the Prince of Dawn's head right there.
Yeah, the Dornish drugs hit different. Yeah, the mountain's fucking crushing my face in as we speak. We didn't even talk about that.
That's true. Yeah, we didn't even mention the Prince of Dawn right here somehow surviving the mountain. You can play the mountain and the Prince of Dawn. It's crazy.
I exist in the alternate universe where the mountain, the trial by combat ended in a romantic love plot where they had a love child together. The mountain and Pedro Pascal came together, had a little smoochy smooch, and produced me.
Crazy. The Dornish mountain.
Who are you? Combination of Jon Snow and Tyrion?
Yeah, season 1 when they're both at the wall. Not gonna lie, there's a banger combo.
God, honestly, this is fantastic. It's becoming quite homoerotic, this episode, isn't it? Anyway, see you all later. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.